Hello, and welcome to this lesson where we're going to look at area and the units that we'd use to measure it. So, area is just the measure of one face. And here we have two dimensions, length and height. And so we get a plane, and we're measuring how much of this face we're using up. So here we have 1 square meter. So we're moving from our length, which is 1 meter, to an area, which is where we arrange a meter by a meter to make a square. And we write 1 meter squared, or 1 square meter. And we call it this because it makes a square. We could then stick 2 next to each other, and that would give us here 2 meters squared, or 2 square meters. We could add then half of a square meter. So this here is 1 meter long and only half a meter down. So if we multiplied 1 by 0.5, we'd only get 0.5. So this altogether would equal 2.5 square meters. So when we're looking at area, we're looking at how much of the face we're taking up, and we measure it in meters squared or millimeters squared, and different units like that. So we're going to look at how we would measure, or the units that we'd use to measure areas, and how we convert between them. Now, you might think, because 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, if we move from 1 centimeter squared, we would end up with 10 millimeters squared. However, this isn't actually true. And you can see it in this diagram. Because we have 1 centimeter equaling 10 millimeters along here, we also have the same thing down here. We end up, instead of with 10 millimeter squares, with 100, because we have 10 by 10, which gives us 100. So we find out that 1 centimeter squared actually equals 100 millimeters squared. Okay, and that means that we have 100 of these squares, and each of these squares equals 1 millimeter squared, which means that across here we have 1 millimeter, and across here we have 1 millimeter. So now we're going to look at what would happen if we converted from meters squared into centimeters or millimeters squared. So we can use our square over here to help us. So if we had 1 meter by 1 meter, that would make this 1 meter squared. Now, 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. So if we have 1 times 1, we get 1 meter squared. If we have 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters, we're going to end up with 4 zeros, because there's 4 in the original. So we end up with 10,000 centimeters squared. So we've just worked out that if we go from 1 meter squared into centimeters squared, we get 10,000 of them. Next, we're looking at what happens if we go to millimeters squared. So 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. So we're going to times 1,000 times 1,000, which gives us 1 million. So we go from 1 meter squared, we get 10,000 centimeters squared, or 1 million millimeters squared, or square millimeters. So there's a lot of millimeters, square millimeters in 1 meter. So we end up with that. Now, we have this identity. 1 hectare is the same as 10,000 square meters. We can write that like this. 1 HA, and HA just means hectare. Like meters, or meters we write M. Hectares we write HA. But with hectare we don't need to use the square part. because a hectare is always talking about area. So 1 hectare is going to always be, if we had our square, 1 HA is always going to be 10,000 meters squared. So 100 meters by 100 meters. So that's what a hectare means. It means that it's a square of that size. So come back to our list of conversions. So now we're going to work out how we would convert kilometers into meters squared. So if we had 1 kilometer squared, we have 1,000 meters. So we're going to get again 1,000 times 1,000, we get, so this area is 1 kilometer squared, and we're going to get 1 million square meters. Now, if we wanted to work out how many hectares are in 1 square kilometer, we're going to use this identity here. So 1 hectare equals 10,000 meters. So we need to divide this by 10,000 meters. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to end up with 100. So 1 kilometer squared equals 100 hectares. So these are different units of measurement. Hopefully you've realized how we work them out so that you don't have to remember them off the top of your head, but you can work them out on your own. The only one that you have to remember off the top of your head is that 1 hectare equals 10,000 meters squared. So make sure that you remember this one. Otherwise, the rest of them you can work out using something like this. Okay, so that's our lesson. I hope that that's made sense to you. If you have any questions, please bring them to me in class. Thanks.